All right, what's going on, everyone? I hope you're having an amazing Monday. Looking forward to the conversation today. Uh, and yeah, having a quick conversation around closing more deals. I think it's that time of year where, everyone is, everyone's trying to think about, hey, how do I get these last deals over the finish line? And so I was catching up with a friend of mine, Mor, talking about something that he's been up to. So he said, hey, let's just talk about it. So I'm going to add him to the stream now. Here we go.
What's up, Jake?
All right, man. There you are. What's going on, man?
Let me change my background. It looks it gets cut off, so I'll just keep it the good old blurred version, I think.
It's all right, man. You can. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
I'll just keep it good
I
old
like
blur.
it though. No, I like it though. I like it. You got the branding now.
Oh, the old school. I guess I'll keep it as is.
Yeah, why not, man? Hey, whatever you want to do, man. I'm up for whatever. So cool, man. So look, I mean, one, for those who don't know you, maybe if you want to do kind of a quick what you're up to, and I think what's cool, man, is like, again, you and I were just catching up randomly a few weeks ago, and you're telling me a little bit more about kind of your passion around like this part of the sales process. So maybe get into that a little bit as well, just what you're up to now, and
Yeah, for sure.
for people who don't know you.
Yeah, so for those that don't know me, I've been like the tech startup space for 7+ years. Like, if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see like my first job out of college was a sales job 11 years ago, and I quit on the first day. I was scared of sales, and like fast forward to today, 3-time sales leader, 2-time VP of sales, and then I have a passion for specifically sales demos. There's a lot of outbound out there. I did outbound for a very long time. But working in the SaaS space and startups and early stage startups, we do a lot of demos. And so for a few companies, I consistently got myself and my team to hit minimum 50% demo conversion rate. And I have this like passion. I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time I should just like launch a course or teach people how to do it, or offer coaching sessions. So I've been doing a little bit of both. I've been offering like one-on-one demo coaching session as like a coaching program. That I decided, some people just like to have a thing that they can go to on-demand content.
Yeah.
They can click around. And so that's what I did. I launched FTTC from demo to close last month. And so now, mixture of like promoting, I'm going on tour, I'm promoting it, I'm talking about it. And I really care about, like a lot of new AEs, and I read a lot of threads in Bravado, Reddit, a lot of new AEs that are getting onboarded are struggling because they're like bosses or whatever are telling them to like just piggyback off of calls and listen to a bunch of recordings, which is helpful, but there's not a lot of guidance, and they want to get ramped up as quickly as possible so they can hit quota as quickly as possible. And so, like there's plenty of outbound stuff, but I thought let's focus purely on demos and how to get them to actually do presentations like a boss. And that's where FTTC came from.
I love it, man. Yeah, I think, a lot of it's interesting, man. It's like we've almost regressed, I feel like, on like training and onboarding people. It's like just listen to so and so do it, and then you'll like magically figure it out. And like it never works, and then but yet we keep like doing the same thing over and over again. So, who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, those top performers that are crushing it. A few reasons why they're crushing. Number one, they've gotten the fundamentals down, and those fundamentals are like the stuff that new AEs are missing out on, that they're not learning.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of people out there, so let's talk about it, because I think even, man, for me, I used to like outlaw the word demo. I would be like, dude, you can't even use it, because I feel like for so many people, the word demo equals one size fits all. It equals, like, oh, I'm gonna do the same pitch for everybody, right? And that's why I hate the word. I've always hated kind of that context, because again, so many people, when they hear the word demo, it's like one size fits all. So what are the things, and I'll give my 2 cents too, but what are the things that for you go into a great demo? When you think about it, like what are like the top things?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest mistake is to like do that one size fits all and keep it generic. So a couple of things that you should like have fundamental pillars when doing the demos is discovery. I talk about discovery a lot. And discovery isn't like a set stage that happens pre-demo, and then once you have discovery, you never have it again. So doing discovery constantly, I think tonality and like showmanship, you're essentially a performer. Like you should treat the demo like a magic show. So you want to get oohs and
I love
ahs.
that.
I was doing a one-on-one coaching session with an AE, and they sent me a recording of their demo. And I told him, like, do you mind if I'm like blunt with you throughout the call, like as I'm giving you feedback? Yeah, sure. We were listening together. I was like, listen, man, like you're feature dumping. It's boring. You're showing slides. Like I'm bored. I'm tuned out. And the
Right.
first 30 minutes, so he had an hour block, but the first 30 minutes of that demo was him going through slides about the company. And then the other 30 minutes were about the actual software itself. So you're already draining someone's attention. People have like certain amount of bandwidth, right? Like you have 12 tabs open on your Chrome. Like over time, it'll just crash. And so humans are the same thing. We have a certain amount of bandwidth. So 30 minutes talking about the company, you get the person really, really bored. By the time you talk about your software, they're already tuned out. Their excitement is gone. Their adrenaline is gone.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's especially in virtual selling, right? I think people have forgotten that the job, I say this all the time, More. I say the job isn't information giving, right? If the job was information giving, then you wouldn't get paid commission. If it
Yeah.
was just like I could just explain what it is, then life would be a lot easier. So, what are the things that you feel like in the discovery process, or how you relate the discovery to the demo? Like, what are some of the key points? Again, so you talked a little bit about showmanship, which I agree with 100%. Which is, again, are you energetic? Are you infusing energy into it? Or are you, you know, um, or are you just like, I guess, like mailing it in, man? Because I feel like that's just so many
Yeah.
people. That's why, again, like going back to like why I hate the word demo. It's just like this, like very, kind of like cookie cutter process.
Yeah. I mean, so going back to like the whole like showmanship and presentation, I think like I talked about tonality. I think there's like I think the mistake that a lot of AEs make is that they're not enthusiastic, but I think a misconception is that enthusiasm means like excitement and like Gary V hyped up.
Yeah.
Right? Like Josh Braun talks about like, hey, you don't have to be excited. You don't have to be like super like wild and lively. For me, my definition of enthusiasm on a sales call is having a lot of conviction. And that doesn't necessarily mean you talk in a very high pitch or you talk aggressively or talk fast. You just have a lot of conviction. And you can tell when someone's like passionate about a
Right.
topic or passionate about something. So I think that's the first thing. Like as far as like tonality, be enthusiastic. So have conviction about what you're selling. I think a lot of A's choose companies, for example, and I know we're sort of deviating away, but they're choosing company because of the comp structure and they don't really care about the product. If the product doesn't resonate with you, it's going to be harder for you to sell the product. And I think as part of the showmanship and part of tonality is focusing too much on the words that you use. I've heard demos, I've done demos in the past early on where I would use like fancy words and I wouldn't keep it simplified, and it doesn't work. There is you'll probably hear a beep. They're doing like a fire alarm testing, but part of something I covered in my FTTC program is a thing called Morabian rule. So it's also known as the 738-55 rule. And essentially what this is think of like an iceberg. You have like the tip of the iceberg and then like the
Sure.
bottom half of the iceberg. 55% of communication effectiveness comes from our body language. 38% comes from our voice, and only 7% comes from the words that we use. And so I think tonality, there's no formal training on tonality. I don't think there is enough talk about tonality. I think it's more about like what you show them, discovery. It's also the tone of voice. Like a couple of tips is like keep your camera on, like fluctuate your voice, have voice inflections. I'll give you a perfect experiment when I do every AE. I tell them to say the word tiny, like whoever's listening, I don't know how many people are listening, but say the word tiny out loud to yourself right now.
Tiny.
Okay, now I want you to say the word again, but before you do, I want you to envision what tiny looks like and use your body language to say tiny, however you decide to use it, and then say the word again.
Tiny.
Right? Like your tone completely changes. That's tonality. So a tip to get better at tonality is to get animated, use your body. So if you're saying the word tiny, it's like I'm on calls, I'm like, yeah, it's just tiny, or it's huge offer, or it's really easy to use. Like I'm stressing the words. And the way to do that is like for those that aren't naturally used to using it, like Jake, I hear you. Like you're naturally used to, like you have a good tone of voice. Some people are not. And so
practice though, man. And I think to your point though, it's really important that like this is learning and manufactured. You know what I mean? That like
Yeah.
I got to this stage or to be able to communicate like this because I practiced it. It's not. I think a lot of people, especially in sales, they think it's it's all what do you call it? Like you're born with it.
Yeah, I think the ones that are born with it are more inclined to pick it up quicker.
That's probably right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like for me, it was I have what I've realized now over time um, an ability to not care or give a fuck that that makes me able to adjust my own patterns faster versus getting stuck on like this is who I am, this is what I sound like.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people do that though. I think a lot of people with tone sometimes more it's like I think it's almost like, well, this is who I am. I'm not gonna like fake it. I'm not gonna like fake like I'm whatever. And the
right.
reality is like, why not? Like, do you really care that much that like this is how you
Yeah.
sound, etc. As opposed to you really can learn it. And when you listen to your own calls, you listen to how you sound. And I think that that's it. Is a lot of people are scared to listen to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like hearing I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice. I had my buddy of mine. He like signed up to my course, and like there's like a video like me talking, and I was like, turn it off! Don't do it in front of me! Don't do it in front of me! Like I don't want to hear the sound of my voice. Um, but I think for those that are like you said, like it's practice. But like, what does practice actually mean? Like practically, it's record your calls, listen to your calls, and then like take one area that you want to improve on. If it's tonality, then just pick tonality as the skill set. And on in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks of listening to your own calls, ignore everything else. I don't say ignore, but like only pay hyper focus on that one skill set, tonality. And so if you're trying to improve your tonality on closing or next steps, like get like really specific, or pausing in between like really important features, then just pay attention to that and work on that skill set for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. A little hack that I did with myself was, and my team was, play back your recording at like 1.5, 2 times speed. When you play it back, the point of that isn't so you can like go through the recording quickly. It's so you can see, do you talk with a proper pace and rhythm that you can catch what you're saying within a 1.5, 2 times speed? Or do you talk without rhythm where you're playing at 2 times speed that you can't even make out what you're saying? It's a little thing that works for me, and it worked for my team when I did it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So when you think about the demo, all right, so we're talking about enthusiasm, tone. I love that because I don't think a lot of people are talking about that, right? It's all about like bant or some type of qualification versus the way that you say something, the tone that you have, the words that you choose. What are the other big things? Like whenever you think about, the demo or you think about that process, like what are the other big things that you think about as, most mission critical?
Yeah, I think like everyone says like active listening, cool, yeah, fine. I think proactive listening is way more important. What that literally means is just like read in between the lines, and that goes back to discovery. So if an A is doing a discovery call with a prospect, and they're asking the prospect, like, what's the reason you're looking at our solution today? This is a real world example that I did with somebody, and the prospect said, yeah, every time we reach out to customer support at XYZ competitor, we get the runaround. They're taking too long to respond, and so the AE is taking notes on their CRM. They're like, okay, clearly this prospect is looking for really good customer support, and that's active listening.
Yeah.
Proactive listening says, hold on, wait a minute. Why does the prospect have to reach out to customer support all the time? Like what's the reason that it's causing them to leave? So an AE that's proactive listening will say something like, hey, Jake, out of curiosity, you mentioned that you're reaching out every time you reach out to the prospect, you getting the runaround. That's why you're looking for a new solution. What's the reason that you're reaching out to the prospect to begin with, to the customer support to begin with? And what you'll usually get is something like, well, we're trying to accomplish X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
and you actually get the real answer. So I think a critical mission critical to a demo is going deep on discovery early on, and then leveraging that discovery throughout the call. So when you're about to show a feature that is really important to the prospect based on what they said on discovery, saying something like, hey, Jake, earlier on the call, you mentioned that you wanted to accomplish
Yeah.
X, Y, Z. I don't want to show you everything. It's not important. I just want to show you the one thing that's going to allow you to accomplish that in the shortest period of time. And that means if you're only showing 1 or 2 features on the demo, even though you're excited about all the other features, do that. Don't like get really hyper focused.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more, man. It's interesting. So I call it on the discovery piece, I call it why 2 times, which is no matter what somebody says to you is like a reason, just ask why twice. Okay, so you said that, blah blah blah. Okay, tell me a little bit more. Why is that like a top of mind right now? Okay, well, again, like, okay, great. Okay, interesting. So, why is this something that you need to, solve right now? Like, why is this, burning or whatever? And that, if you just have that mentality that after every single response, you ask why or tell me more, whatever it is, you will immediately get better responses. And two, what you said, and it's why, like, whenever we've got a kind of a science of the close workshop we do, and we don't even call it a demo, we call it matching, because it's exactly what you just said. If before you say something, a feature, you can't say early in our conversation you said this, let me show you that, you probably shouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think
100%.
a lot of people really, really struggle with that, because they're just going through, and it's like, look, you can have the same 6 talking points that you want to talk about in every demo, but based on my answers, where you spend the time should be 2 and 4,
Yeah.
or 3 and 5, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, my slogan that I use is, you said, like, ask the why twice, the 2 whys. Discover what you've just discovered. So you got your discovery answer, just discover that again, which is like what you're saying, the double why. I think for AEs that are like hear this, and from the ones that I've spoken to, especially if you're not like seasoned, they don't feel comfortable prying and digging because they feel like it's too blunt and aggressive and interrogative.
Yeah.
And if you feel that, I mean, yeah, that comes with practice. But a way to like hack it earlier on is call yourself out. Like, if you feel uncomfortable asking that question, if you feel like you're being too blunt, say, "Hey, Jake, I feel a little blunt asking you this, but," and then just ask the question, and then you take off that stress from your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think what I managed to convince myself of very early is, like, I genuinely want to help this person, right?
Mm.
Like, and because I know that I'm coming from a good place, right? Like, I know I'm coming from a place of, like, I want to help this person, and I also know, and again, even though I was 20, 25, 26, I'm thinking about this, like, talking to 50-year-old HR executives. I knew that I knew more about my one little thing than they did. They might have a lot more experience than I did. But, like, if you're not, you said this in the very beginning about being passionate about what you sell or excited. I can get pretty much excited about anything, um, but if, like, you don't genuinely believe that you have value to give, that you don't know more. Like, again, like, I worked at Career Builder during this time, and I'm like, look, these HR leaders, they know a lot about a lot of things, but I know more about trends in how people are searching for jobs than they do,
Mm.
right? Because that's my job. If you're in sales, that's your job. Your job is to be in front of the trends. Your job is to help your customers, get ahead of things, etc. And so I think for me, that is where a lot of this boils down to, that if you don't feel confident, are you selling a product that you care enough about to go deep on, right? Or two, do you feel like you're imposing on people? And I think that that's a lot of it. More is a lot of people, it's why people start the call with, like, oh, thank you so much for your time,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you, Car. I know you're busy. What? Like, what? Why are you starting to call like that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so weird.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story, talking, because you were talking about, like, essentially what I heard you say at some point there is, like, if you know the industry really well, better than the prospect does, then when you talk to the prospect, you feel like I'm helping you. So, like, when I moved into my new apartment, I'm renting a new place right now. The first week or two, the kitchen had a leak. I didn't notice it, and then I started noticing. I was like, "Holy crap, there's a leak!" The entire wall just felt like a sponge. I was like, "There's for sure mold behind the walls." And so, long story short, property management came upstairs. They brought in a mold remediation company. They found out there's like 100% humid, what do you call it? Water behind the walls. Long story short, they gutted the whole kitchen. But during that entire period of time, because the landlord was saying that I had to pay the rent, but I was in default. So I had to read up on, like, landlord tenant laws. I spoke to attorneys. Like, I read threads. Like, I went deep to the point where I probably know more about landlord tenant laws when it comes to, like, mold issues, more than, like, the average landlord and the average tenant. And so if
Right.
I were selling a product to a tenant or to a landlord with this particular problem, I'd probably kill it because I went through it. I can relate to it. I'm an industry expert. And so I think knowing your product is really important. It's extremely important, but knowing the industry is even more important. Because now when you know the industry really well, instead of just being an AE that's selling XYZ software, you are an advisor for XYZ industry, and you happen to sell XYZ software.
Exactly right.
It's totally
Yeah,
different mind shift.
that's exactly it. Like I solved this problem. I just so happened to do it with this piece of software.
Yes.
And that's, I think that's once you have that epiphany, once you kind of realize that, everything changes. And I think, some people never get there. So let's talk a little bit about the course. So we've got like 9 minutes left here. Like tell me a little bit about the course, because again, like, for me, I love practical. I love things that are tangible, practical. Like, so talk a little bit about the course, and you talked a little bit in the beginning about why you did it, but what can people learn? And make sure to drop the link in there as well too.
Yeah.
Definitely, if y'all are interested, sign up. We didn't negotiate an affiliate deal or anything. I just think it's an awesome topic. So what do you like? Why did you end up finally doing it? And two, like, what can people expect to get out of it?
Yeah. So the why I ended up doing it is sort of like a selfish reason plus a non-selfish reason. So the selfish reason was like, hey, I'd like to make like a side income, right? Like, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable making up a course on something I barely know, because it's not valuable, and I'm cheating somebody out of their money, and I don't want to do that. And so I was like, let me pick a topic that I know really well. This way, whoever does take the course and does pay me does end up getting value. So that the selfish reason was, how do I make more income? The secondary reason was, there is like my buddy started his third or fourth startup, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, there's nowhere I can go to get specific expertise on like sales demo. Like, I can get free content, but there's no like course around this. I think there was like, I told him like, there's winning by design, there's like those things, but there was nothing very like hyper focused. He's like, why don't you do it? I was like, yeah, like maybe I will. Like, this could be really helpful. And I read a lot of threads on Reddit, Bravado, for example, and you
Yep.
have like AEs like, hey, where should I go to learn how to do this in demos, and where should I learn? And so I was like, like there's sort of like a selfish reason plus this reason of like, there's a demand in the market, so let me merge the two. So that was the why, and what pushed me to do it. I totally forgot the second question.
Huh? Well, it was just like the course. Like, what
Yeah.
can people expect to learn?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what are like the big tenets in there?
Yeah, so the problem with like most courses, and I personally with a lot of courses, is it's generic and it's not specific to the industry. And I can say the same thing about my course. It's not specific to a particular industry, because the course is built for AEs in every industry. But what they could learn from it is stuff like we're talking about right now, like stuff that they can actually apply on the demos. Like, what are practical tips to get better at tonality? What are practical like action items that they can do? If they practice this consistently, they will actually learn how to talk about the impact of the features and be able to sell the product better, because of they're talking about the why. How to get better at closing, how to get better at discovery. I'm sure there's a lot of course out there, right? Like, and so like one thing that I'm offering as part of like iteration and market research is I'm offering like free one-on-one demo coaching. And I've done this for the past week or so for about an hour long. We get on a call, listen to a recording live with that AE, and I give them feedback, and then I iterate my course based on that. And so essentially, you will learn how to close more demos. The stuff that I teach in the course is the stuff that I did for myself, for my teams that I built out, where I got everybody to close at a minimum 50% of their demo conversion rate, minimum. It's not like I know some people are already doing like 60, 70%. If that's the case, it's not for you. It's more for like maybe new AEs or companies that are struggling.
If you're already doing 67, I mean, look, then I would argue those are the people that, want to get even more nuanced. Sometimes those are the people that are the hungriest.
You know what? I don't know. From what I've seen, the hungriest are the SDRs that just became AEs. They're like, they're ready to take on the world. The AEs that have been doing it for like 3, 4, 5 years and are killing it, from what I've seen, at least, maybe at least my research, they're sort of, I don't say complacent, but they're like, I don't need a course to teach me what I already know. It's tricky.
Yeah, well, that's cool, man. All right, so what would you say if someone's like, what's the number one piece of advice that you find yourself giving these types of people? So SDRs or people that are new. Like, is there a piece of advice you find yourself giving over and over again?
Yeah, continuous discovery. That's why SDRs are really good, because part of their role is to do discovery. But continuous discovery means, like, I said it like last week on LinkedIn. I was like, discovery is the spinal cord of the demo, which means when you're doing the demo, the features, the closing, the next steps, you're also doing discovery. You're like, after a feature, you want to know how is that relevant, or how does that align to what the prospect wants. And so it's this, without the discovery throughout the demo, you're just doing a regular demo, very static, very much the same. So continuous discovery is the constant piece of advice I always give.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, man. Well, look, again, did you drop the? I don't have linked up.
Yeah, there's no place for me to drop it, actually, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's a comment. You can just drop it in the comments.
Yeah, it's not letting me. Hold on. Maybe I have to go to LinkedIn Live to do it.
Yeah, you got to go LinkedIn. Yeah, you got to go.
All right, let me do it right now. Hold on.
Yeah, go over there, drop it in there. People can take a quick look. Yeah, I mean, look, and then as you're doing that, I'll kind of wrap up. For me, the demo, it's so interesting. It's like, so many people, it's just like they're just going through the motions, as opposed to, like, if you're engaged and you're listening. It's another reason why a script, I think, is so important for people. It's like, look, there's nothing, because if I have a script, if I know the next question I'm going to ask, I can be more present. And whether you call it an outline or a script, whatever, that's one of the things that I learned in my sales career when I was about 25, 26, is like, wow, like, scripts aren't for, like, sounding like a robot. Scripts are actually there to, like, help me be more engaged in the conversation, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't think about it that way. But we as humans, like you talked about bandwidth, like, we actually suck at multitasking.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an idea of the questions that you're going to ask in the discovery, you're always thinking about, what's the next question I'm going to ask.
The way I think about scripts also is, like, because I know there's some people like super anti-script. I like metaphors. I can relate to metaphors or analogies. When you go bowling, you can either bowl without the bumpers or with the bumpers. If you bowl with the bumpers, the goal isn't to bowl against the bumpers. It's just a way to keep you in line.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I look at script. It's just like it's just a reminder.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, for me, I don't know. Like, what I learned, I mean, like I said, I was 26. I very specifically remember it. My boss's boss, my director, I was the second to last. I hadn't sold anything. Second to last person in training class. And my boss listened to my call and said, "Why aren't you following the script?" I'm like, "The script?" Like that, like, yeah, right. And he goes, "Dude, do you think we train 1,000 people on this because it doesn't work?" I was like, "No, probably not." He goes, "Dude, just do it. Just read it." So I did. I was like, "What is your response?" I'm like, da, da, da. Then I went to the next, and I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, there actually is an order of operation that matters. And I think that's another thing I'd say about the discovery is people don't realize the order of operations, when and how you ask questions. Like, if you ask really tactical questions in the very beginning, you're going to have a very tactical conversation, as opposed to strategic questions, future-facing questions, and then getting into the tactical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was. I'll mention this. I was doing a call with somebody, a coaching call, and essentially they have a software that sort of like WalkMe, where it guides the users on how to. Long story short, the particular prospect they're on the call with, their pain point, the why, was it's taking too long for new hires to get onboarded using the CRM, and so they were looking at their product, and so they got that surface level response from the prospect, and then they went on to do the demo. And so my feedback to them was like, hold on, wait a minute. There are four questions you could have asked on this topic. Number one, how long is too long as far as onboarding goes? What is the impact of that slow onboarding? How long have you experienced this issue, and why now? If you experienced this for like 3 years, then what happened after 3 years that you decided to get on the call today? And so there are questions on top of the questions that you should be asking, like you said, the why to the why on the discovery, and then take these four answers that you're getting from the prospect, and then, like I said earlier, before talking about a feature that accomplishes that particular goal, don't just talk about the feature, sort of like introduce it. Like you said, like, Jake, you mentioned earlier on the call that the reason you're spending about 10 hours a month just getting someone onboarded when you'd like to get them on board in 5 days, whatever it is. So what I'm about to show you will allow you to do it in half the
exactly.
time, and then talk about the feature.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. You talk about it, then you go, hey, you mentioned this, now let me show you that. And then again, that's what I used to tell my reps. It's like, if you can't say what I just said, you said this, then you shouldn't be talking about it. And the other thing that I would do too, this would be a fun one for you too, more, you should check this out, is I would say, all right, this next call, you cannot mention our company name and you cannot mention one single feature by its name. You just have to explain the value,
Mm.
right? Like, no, you can't mention the feature. Let's say
Yeah,
job postings, like job postings. You can't say the word job posting. You can't say the word resume database. Figure it out. And it forces your brain to then go and talk value
yeah.
and say, well, this is where we're going to put you in front of XYZ, not this is what a job posting is.
Yeah, you know what worked for me, because I had when I first started doing demos for the first time a few years ago. I would default to talking about the feature. Like, what I'm about to show you is feature name, and this is what feature does. And I end up I'm essentially doing a training call and less of a demo, less of like a, you know. And so what I did was, I opened up, and you can do this. It's something that I put on my course. Open up a Google Sheet. Column A, column B. Column A says features. Column B says outcomes / impact. And then I want you to list like your hero features. Maybe it's 5, 6, whatever it is, on column under column A that says features, and under column B outcomes impact. I want you to list the what is the impact of that feature, and then I want you to take the columns and reverse them. And so when you're about to talk about a feature, talk about the outcomes first.
Exactly.
Then
Yeah.
it's the whole, like, Simon Sinek, start with why, right? It's like, talk about the why, the impact, and leave the name of the feature at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the other thing we would do for fun, just for bonus points as we wrap up, is we would also pick random words that we'd have to work into the demo, right?
Uh-huh.
But that's the point, right? It's like, it's supposed to be energizing. It's supposed to be fun. Like,
Yeah.
we would work in, like, it's fun trying to work in Abraham Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth into a demo about, a job posting, right? And, like, I think so many people that's, you're engaged in the conversation. I think that's a lot of what you talked about too, is like, whether it's the tone, the questions, you're engaged in the conversation. And so if you want to run a great demo, you need to be engaged in the front half of the conversation.
Yeah.
You can't just mail it in.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd recommend, if like I guarantee, like, everyone listening, whoever sells software, has one feature that's like like they always talk about, like, this is the easiest feature to use, the easiest, it's super easy, super intuitive, blah 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 blah. Instead of you taking your mouse and like going through the motions, give mouse control to the prospect on the demo and
Hmm.
tell them, hey Jake, I want to show you how. Like, I typically do this myself, but I want to show you how easy this is to use. So I'm going to give you mouse control and have them do it, and that creates a lot more engagement.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. All right. So look, you guys, you heard it here from Mor. He just dropped his new course, talking about, again, from demo to close, right? I think what I love about the course, and even like your whole philosophy, is it's actually very focused on the discovery too, which is just it's so critical. It's like when people come to us and ask for help in getting better at closing, it's like, well,
Yeah.
we just need to get better at discovery. They're
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, that's just what it is, man.
Closing doesn't happen at the end; it happens in the beginning.
It's an outcome. That's what I say.
Yep.
Closing is an outcome of a well-executed process. And every deal I've ever lost, I can go back and see, like, oh man, I messed it up there, or I didn't ask that question, etc. So for everyone out there, obviously follow Mor. You can see he just dropped the link in there too,
Yeah.
so you can go and follow him. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation,
Same here, man.
and definitely make sure to follow him. Go check out the course, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, man.